not normal laugh. On US Election Day, Trump v Harris, the Americast Guide to Election Night. Listen now on BBC Sounds.
No one's seen Annie or Noah since the party last night.
There's something I need to ask you about.
Has something happened?
Ian didn't want the marriage to end.
Do you often break into the houses of your old friends?
I said I'd look after her.
That doesn't justify what you did.
The new series of Shetland starts tomorrow at 9 on BBC One and iPlayer.
You have few friends, Cromwell. They don't know how to deal with you.
When negotiation and compromise fail, and your only course is to destroy your enemy.
My own daughter defies me.
Before they wake in the morning,
Always you with the bad news.
have the axe in your hand.
The new series of Wolf Hall, The Mirror and the Light starts Sunday at 9 on BBC One and iPlayer.
This is BBC One, now the news with Sophie Raworth in London and Clive Myrie in Washington.
At 6, we're live in Washington as America goes to the polls. Millions of voters up and down the country are casting ballots to elect their 47th president. After voting today in Florida, Donald Trump says he's feeling confident. While Kamala Harris, after wrapping up her campaign last night, says she'll be spending polling day with family and friends.
Also tonight, the Olympic cycling champion Sir Chris Hoy describes his shock at discovering he has terminal cancer.
I've got stage 4 prostate cancer, completely out the blue. No symptoms, no warnings, nothing. All I had was a pain in my shoulder.
A gang of people smugglers are convicted in France. Long jail sentences for 18 people thought to be behind 10,000 small boat channel crossings. And £2,000 for this piece of cake, which is almost 80 years old.
And on BBC London, news in the last hour or so that the tube strikes are off. Meanwhile, why bus drivers are protesting for better working conditions.
Hello to you on this election day in America. We're in Washington with the White House just behind me there, bathed in glorious sunshine. And as I speak, millions across the land are choosing their next president. Now, the polls have been tight with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump neck and neck for many weeks now. But the result, when we get it, will chart two very different courses for the future of this country. Now, an average of the national polls suggested Kamala Harris was still just a single point ahead of Donald Trump, leading into this election day. But the result could well depend on what happens in the 7 so-called swing states, the key battlegrounds, where it's difficult to predict the outcome. And here, the polls have tightened further. If you look at Arizona down there on this graph, you can see Donald Trump's edge there is now down to nearly a point since yesterday. In some of the other swing states, the race is even closer. Neither candidate can bank on a win. Well, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump campaigned right up to the last minute to try to win over any undecided voters, as Sarah Smith now reports.
Every vote matters. And let's go, Kamala.
Into the early hours of this morning, the stars came out for Kamala Harris. It's obviously not a victory party, but the Harris campaign is sending a deliberately optimistic message.
Tonight, then we finish as we started, with optimism, with energy, with joy, knowing that we, the people, have the power to shape our future.
She said herself to be nauseously optimistic, which doesn't sound particularly comfortable. And there are still menacing warnings about re-electing Donald Trump.
If we don't show up tomorrow,
it is entirely possible that we will not have the opportunity to ever cast a ballot again.
As Donald Trump, along with his wife, cast their votes in Florida, he said he doesn't expect any major disruption, not from his supporters.
Of course there'll be no violence. My supporters are not violent people. I don't have to tell them that. And I certainly don't want any violence, but I certainly don't have to tell. These are great people. These are people that believe in no violence. Unlike your question, you believe in violence.
Donald Trump's been battling for 4 years to get back into the White House, ever since he was evicted after the last election.
Kamala Harris has delivered soaring prices and economic anguish at home, war and chaos abroad, and nation-destroying invasion on our southern border like nobody's ever seen before. She's actually a disaster.
Staying on message has been his problem. His campaign managers worry he could lose himself this election with some of the things he says.
Beautiful young lady, which I'm not allowed to say. You can't say beautiful, so I'll take beautiful. But she was a beautiful young... In politics, you're not allowed to call a woman beautiful anymore. It's the end of your career. So please delete the word beautiful. Thank you very much.
The polling stations are now open and busy in all 50 states and 6 time zones across the US. Voters are making their choice in what many say they think is the most consequential election of their lifetimes.
I am very thrilled that it's over, because if I see one more infomercial or commercial, I thought I was going to shoot myself. But I'm really excited that the day is here and that our voices can be heard. So I'm excited.
The main reason I voted for Donald Trump is because of my faith and my belief that abortion is wrong.
Trump has said a lot of divisive, but incisive things that I really just don't support, like morally as a human.
Amidst fears there could be attempts to intimidate voters at polling stations, the authorities have a succinct message.
Anybody who thinks it's time to play militia, F around and find out. Anybody who thinks it's time to insult, to deride, to mistreat, to threaten people, F around and find out.
The first results already in from tiny Dixville Notch, where there are only 6 voters, who split evenly, 3 for Harris, 3 for Trump.
Morning. How you doing?
The results from the first of the key swing states will be known in the next few hours. Sarah Smith, BBC News, Washington.
Well, before today, more than 82 million Americans had already voted early, but in the end, the result could come down to just a few thousand voters in a handful of states.
So what is the path to the White House? Well, who becomes president is decided by something called the Electoral College, with each of the 50 states having a certain number of Electoral College votes, depending on the size of their population. So, for example, California, which traditionally backs the Democrats, gets 54 votes. That means all 54 of those votes will go to Kamala Harris. Whereas Texas, which is largely Republican, gets 40 votes. So all those votes go to Donald Trump. Overall, the total number of votes up for grabs is 538. And the magic number to get to the White House is 270. So keep that important number in mind, 270 Electoral College votes, with the 7 crucial swing states, the main battlegrounds, because we simply don't know which way they'll go. In most of them, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, we could have a result by the end of tomorrow. Pennsylvania is the biggest prize, with 19 Electoral College votes. Nearly 13 million people live in Pennsylvania, but in 2020, Joe Biden won by just 80,000 votes. Other states like Arizona and Nevada could take some days to count their mail-in ballots, so we might not know who's become the 47th president for some time.
Yeah, I hope you were listening carefully. That's your crash course on the Electoral College. We're going to go to a couple of those crucial swing states now. First of all, Anna Foster is live in Pennsylvania, and John Sodworth is going to join us as well. Anna, first to you. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, they were in the state yesterday, signposting just how important that state is.
It really is, Clive, absolutely. As you were saying there, 19 of those precious electoral college votes belong to this state of Pennsylvania. Last time round, it voted for Joe Biden. In 2016, it voted for Donald Trump. So it really could be anybody's. And that is why you've seen both candidates spend so much time, effort, energy, money on this particular state. They visited, their running mates have visited, their friends, families, party grandees have all been here in the last few weeks and months trying to pull those floating voters on side. And even last night, I was watching new posters going up on the lamp posts here, on the trees, you know, really quite bullish messaging as people try and grab those last few votes in the last few hours, because it could all come down to a state like this one. Both sides desperately want it. Both candidates desperately want Pennsylvania because, Clive, it is very hard to win the White House without taking this state.
It is indeed. Let's go to John Sudworth, who's in Georgia. John, that state was won by less than 12,000 votes in 2020 by Joe Biden. Donald Trump has a slight lead in the polls there. What are voters saying to you?
Well, whatever the advantage, of course, it is well within the margin of polling error, Clive. This is on a knife edge, like the other swing states where this election will be decided. I'm in Atlanta. This is the biggest city in Fulton County, which is one of the most reliably Democratic counties in the whole of America. So no surprise that the voters we've been speaking to today are in large part backing Kamala Harris, but it would of course be an opposite picture out in some of the rural areas of this state. One interesting thing, there have been some small technical changes to the way people can cast their votes this year. Those who are turning up at the wrong polling stations where they are not registered to vote used to be able to cast provisional ballots. That is not the case this year, at least not before 5 p.m. this evening. We've seen a few voters being turned away today. One woman furious and echoing Democratic Party concerns that these changes are designed to prevent hard-working middle-class people from getting to the polls, something that the Republican Party denies, of course. But whatever the truth, we know that every single vote here counts. As you say, just a few thousand votes in it last time. One other interesting thing to note, because of the way that Georgia counts its votes and because many people have cast their ballots early, it is certainly more than possible that we may get a good indication of the result here later tonight, giving us perhaps a good early sight of where this contest is going to end up countrywide.
Indeed, early on, everyone looking at Georgia. Thank you, John. John Sudworth there in Atlanta, and Anna Foster as well in Pennsylvania. Thanks to you. Sarah Smith, our North America editor, is with me. Both camps have spent millions. TV has been flooded with their ads. This is saturation coverage. Now it's the big day. One wonders how both camps are feeling.
Well, they both say they're confident of victory, but they would, wouldn't they? Of course, they're deeply, deeply anxious because, as you say, they have done everything they can for months and months and months. In Donald Trump's case, 4 years he's been at this. They've spent $16 billion in total on this campaign, on all the adverts, the endless emails, the non-stop text messages, the door knocking. Now all they can do is sit and wait. And it comes down entirely into who can get their vote out, who actually bothers to turn up to the polls, because it's so tight, as you've already said. It just takes a few voters to be a little bit unenthused, not bother to get out to the polls, and that could make all of the difference. You've got both of them just waiting to see if their voters actually turn up today.
Yeah. Big day. All right, Sarah, thank you. Sarah Smith there. We'll, of course, have full coverage of the US election as it unfolds straight after the 10 o'clock news tonight with Katrina Perry and Sumi Somaskanda on BBC One and the iPlayer. Our live page will have all the results as they come in. And Nuala McGovern and Ros Atkins are leading the coverage on radio. And don't forget, the Americast podcast on BBC Sounds whenever you want it. There's much more analysis there too. So, on this historic day, there'll be more from us at 10 o'clock. But for now, it's back to you, Sophie, in the studio with the rest of the day's news.
Clive, thank you. The Olympic cycling champion Sir Chris Hoy has called for the age at which men with a family history of prostate cancer are tested in the UK to be lowered. 2 weeks ago, Sir Chris, who's 48, revealed that his cancer is terminal. Both his father and grandfather had the disease, but currently men can't ask for the test on the NHS until the age of 50. The government now says it will review this. Patrick Geary reports.
Sir Chris Hoy has never shirked challenges. In fact, he's sought them out, chased them, conquered them. But now one of our greatest Olympians' greatest challenge is one that's found him.
It's been the toughest year of our lives so far by some stretch. September 2023, I got the news that I had a terminal illness. So I've got stage 4 prostate cancer, completely out the blue. No symptoms, no warnings, nothing. All I had was a pain in my shoulder. I remember the feeling of just absolute horror and shock. How on earth are we going to tell the kids? And I think the key was telling them about the treatment and saying, look, I'm about to get chemotherapy. It's going to make me quite unwell. It's not the cancer that's making me unwell, but this is going to knock me back, but it's medicine that's going to push back the cancer for as long as possible and make me feel better for a while.
Even for someone with his legendary strength and resilience, chemotherapy would be tough. Not least the ice cap Sir Chris had to put on so that his son Callum wouldn't see him lose his hair.
So for him, I thought, well, this is something I want to do and it's important to do. But that was the biggest pain. That was the biggest challenge. It was excruciating. It's like torture, basically. I remember just thinking, I'm sitting here in a warm hospital room with a cold cap on my head. Come on, I know this is going to end. It's going to end in a couple of hours' time. This isn't that bad. It seems horrendous when you look, you think, oh, this is 2 more hours, I can't cope. Don't do it for 2 hours, do it for 1 minute. The strategy was just take it one step at a time.
Prostate cancer can be spotted using a blood test called a PSA test. Sir Chris Hoy wants more men to request them, even if, like him, they don't have symptoms.
If you've got family history of it, like I have, if you're over the age of 45, go and ask your doctor. Just get the test a little bit earlier, catch it before you need to have any major treatment. To me, it seems a no-brainer. You know, why would they not reduce the age, bring the age down?
Sir Chris doesn't stay still for long. Next year, he wants to stage a charity bike ride, the Tour de Four, hoping to get others with stage 4 cancer in the saddle. This master of speed knows the power of the present.
You know, if somebody's watching this right now who's just had a horrendous diagnosis like me, to sort of look and think, well, blimey, I didn't think you could look like that or still be living a full life a year on from getting that diagnosis. Well, there's hope out there.
Chris Hoy in his first TV interview there. Our medical editor Fergus Walsh is with me now. There is no actual screening programme, is there, for prostate cancer?
That's right. Men over 50 can go and ask their GP for a blood test looking for PSA levels, prostate-specific antigen. And that can pick up cancer, but it's also very unreliable. But the health secretaries in England and Scotland have said they'll now ask for a review of the benefits of screening. Chris Hoy saying there that he would like to see men as young as 45 and those with a family history getting regular tests. Now, this is a huge issue for men. If we look at the figures, you'll see that there's around 12,000 deaths from prostate cancer every year in the UK, and 1 in 8 men will get prostate cancer at some point in their lives. That rises to 1 in 4 among black men. It usually affects men in their 70s, but it can strike much younger. Chris Hoy is just 48. Now, there is a huge trial called Transform, which is going to look at different ways of screening, comparing a spit saliva test with new blood tests and also rapid MRI scans. And the hope is that that will eventually lead to a reliable screening programme.
Fergus Walsh, our medical editor, thank you. And you can see more of that interview with Sir Chris Hoy on a special programme tonight. It's Sir Chris Hoy Finding Hope on BBC One, and it is at 8 p.m. You can also watch it on the BBC iPlayer. A man arrested at Manchester Airport by the National Crime Agency and extradited to France is one of 18 people who have been given lengthy jail sentences after being convicted of people smuggling offences. Their arrests followed a huge Europe-wide operation targeting a people smuggling network which is thought to be behind more than 10,000 small boat crossings to the UK. Our Paris correspondent Andrew Harding joins me now. And Andrew, you've done a lot of work investigating these people smuggling gangs. How significant are these sentences?
I think this is quite a significant moment, Sophie. I was in court in Lille to watch the prosecution lay out their case. It's been an enormous effort to get to this point. 67 tons of paperwork involved. They've had to bring in people from different countries. There are different extradition treaties, evidence, bail conditions. It's all been very complicated. And frankly, it's not clear yet what kind of difference this is going to make long term, but prosecutors insisted on heavy sentences. They've got them today. And this case, remember, it started back in 2022. It involved arrests, as you mentioned, in the UK, in France, in Belgium, also in Germany, where police seized a lot of equipment that this particular smuggling gang had used. Will it all now act as a deterrent for the gangs? Perhaps, but critics say that there are still many young men who are ready to volunteer to be recruits to what remains a very lucrative smuggling industry.
Andrew Harding, our Paris correspondent, thank you. The father of 10-year-old Sarah Sharif, who was found dead at her home in Surrey, has given evidence at the Old Bailey. Irfan Sharif denied murdering his daughter in Woking last year. He told jurors that he had never bitten, burnt or beaten Sarah. Our correspondent Helena Wilkinson was in court.
Which one is your bag? I don't know any bag.
This was the moment Sarah's father was detained on a plane moments after it landed at Gatwick Airport in September last year.
Yeah, could you just confirm your name for me, please, sir? Yeah, Irfan Sharif.
Irfan Sharif, Sarah's stepmother Beenish Batul and her uncle Faisal Malik had returned from Pakistan, where they had gone the day after Sarah had died. All three were arrested and later charged with her murder. Today, Sarah's father wept in the witness box. He described his daughter as a beautiful angel who wanted to be a ballet dancer. In an exchange with his barrister, Sarah's father was asked, "Are you, Irfan Sharif, responsible for the death of Sarah Sharif?" "No," Mr. Sharif replied. "Did you, Irfan Sharif, bite Sarah Sharif?" "Never," was his answer. "Did you, Irfan Sharif, burn Sarah Sharif?" "No," he replied. In court, Irfan Sharif's barrister told the jury that on the day that Sarah died, Irfan Sharif returned home to find Sarah limp. The barrister said that Sarah's father attempted CPR and begged for an ambulance to be called. He added that Mr. Sharif was then told, "Leave it, she's dead," by Sarah's stepmother. Mr. Sharif's case is that Sarah's stepmother was responsible for her death. The three defendants deny murder and causing or allowing the death of a child. The trial continues. Helena Wilkinson, BBC News. Buckingham Palace has announced that Queen Camilla has withdrawn from her engagements this week because she has a chest infection. In a statement, the palace says she hopes to recover in time to attend this weekend's remembrance events. The 77-year-old Queen returned to the UK last Wednesday after a trip with the King to Australia and Samoa. The Prince of Wales says South Africa's community of park rangers are risking their lives every day from illegal poachers. This afternoon, Prince William announced a series of measures to better protect park rangers and their families. His four-day tour will culminate with his Earthshot Prize Award ceremony, an annual award that gives £1 million prizes to the best environmental innovations. From Cape Town, our senior royal correspondent Daniela Relf reports.
Taking care of an environmental treasure and those who protect it. In the shadow of Table Mountain, the Prince of Wales met the park rangers and conservationists preserving South Africa's natural assets.
I really loved having a conversation with Prince William surrounding the importance for support of rangers. It is true that they are on the front line of conservation. And you have to remember these days, conservation, it can be a dangerous business.
Anton Mazimba was a park ranger fighting poachers for almost 25 years. He knew Prince William through their environmental work. Anton was murdered 2 years ago. Today, the Prince announced a package of support for rangers and their families.
These people do far more than protect wildlife. They are educators, they are community supporters, and they help regulate the sustainable use of natural resources. Yet far too often, they lack sufficient support, with rangers in particular facing inadequate pay and protection.
Prince William was deeply upset by the murder of Anton Mazimba, someone he described as committed and brave. These new measures are designed to protect those here who risk their lives every day. Conservation led discussions today. Tomorrow, Prince William will announce the 5 winners of his £1 million Earthshot Environmental Prize. Daniela Ralph, BBC News, Cape Town.
Vaping and smoking outside hospitals and schools and in playgrounds could soon be banned in England. It is already an offence to smoke on NHS hospital grounds in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. But the government has rowed back from making it illegal in pub beer gardens. Our health editor Hugh Pym reports.
It's scenes like these that the government's new plan for England hopes to eradicate. Smoking and possibly vaping are set to be banned outside hospitals, in line with Scotland and Wales, and also schools and playgrounds. This morning I met Maria, vaping outside hospital, before going in for her appointment. She's not bothered about the idea of a ban.
I don't think it's a bad thing. People will still do it. They'll just move down the road 5 minutes. So, yeah, it's fine. It's not great to smoke outside a hospital. They're trying to help people. So, yeah.
Hassan, also waiting for treatment, smokes a bit and vapes. He's unhappy about the government making it illegal outside hospitals.
If I had to advise people, don't smoke. It ruined my life. And I agree with that, but I don't think government should have control of everything.
Today's policy also focuses on restricting underage vaping, including limits on packaging and flavours, as well as introducing a licensing scheme for retailers. But the industry argues that vaping has helped millions quit tobacco smoking for what's been deemed a safer alternative.
Our worry is the perception already amongst adult smokers is actually that vaping is not materially safer than smoking, which we know it is, and therefore the worry here by continuing to link the two things is that actually perceive that vaping is as bad or potentially worse than smoking, which it categorically isn't.
There'll now be consultation on the plans, but for child health experts, the bill can't become law soon enough.
We run the risk of having a generation of children who have never smoked before, who start taking up vaping as a sort of new addiction. We know that in this country we have 1 million people who vape today who have never smoked before in the past.
These moves add to the previous government's plan to raise the legal age for tobacco sales every year. Experts say the whole package could be the most important public health intervention for a generation. Hugh Pym, BBC News.
Now, this weekend in Saudi Arabia, one of the top stars of women's tennis will lift the WTA Finals trophy and pocket $5 million. It's the first time that a major professional women's sport event has been held in Saudi, but women's rights are restricted in the kingdom, and the decision to stage the event there has proved highly controversial. Our sports news correspondent Laura Scott reports from Riyadh.
As the stars of women's tennis serve up a show in Riyadh, a lot's resting on the promise of sport driving positive change. Despite record prize money for players, the kingdom's reputation has prompted some soul-searching.
Obviously, I'm a woman and I was very concerned, and my dad honestly was very concerned with me coming here, but I want to see it for myself and see if the change is happening, and then if I felt uncomfortable or felt like it, nothing's happening, then maybe, I probably wouldn't come back.
This country's no stranger to hosting top-level sport, but what makes this significant is it's the first major women's sports event to be held here. Whilst there have been recent reforms, human rights issues remain, and critics claim the WTA has sold its soul by allowing Saudi Arabia to host the crown jewel of women's tennis. The WTA said it was sensitive to concerns about bringing the final somewhere where women's rights are restricted, homosexuality is illegal, and where the appetite for tennis isn't clear. But it said its 3-year deal was justified by players receiving equal prize money to the men and plans to leave a legacy.
Who's from Saudi? Yes?
The ambition here is to get 1 million Saudis engaged in tennis by 2030, helped by camps like this, where budding players train on the same courts as their idols.
We never really had these kind of tournaments and events in Saudi, so for them to finally come is like life-changing. Yes! I feel like it's so nice to watch the players this closely, so hopefully one day we can see Saudi females compete in that level.
This will definitely improve the women's chances getting into the sport that they love.
How do you feel when people question Saudi Arabia's suitability as a host of these finals?
We're on a transformation journey and we invite anyone and everyone. I really would love them to come and see for themselves. Seeing is believing.
Beautiful, one more.
The promise is that these women haven't just come to pose, play and get paid, but that they can be a force for good. The critics will take some convincing that prize money hasn't come at the expense of principles. Laura Scott, BBC News, Riyadh.
Now that is quite a cake, isn't it? A rare slice of this wedding cake. It's from the marriage of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip back in 1947. Has sold at auction for more than £2,000. The fruitcake was discovered in a suitcase which belonged to a housekeeper at the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh. Joe Black reports.
From the palace balcony, Elizabeth and her husband waved to the cheering crowds.
November the 20th, 1947. The nation and the world witnessed the wedding of the young Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip. During the celebrations, the royal couple had several wedding cakes, including this one with 4 tiers standing at 9 feet high. Now, 77 years on, a slice of cake thought to be from that day has been discovered. It was stashed under a bed. The story goes that a former housekeeper at Holyrood House in Edinburgh received the cake and kept it until she died in the 1980s. And today it went to auction with a £500 estimate, which was quickly surpassed.
Rare piece of wedding cake here at £2,200 on the telephone in China, 2002. It's a little slither of history. When that was given in 1947, rationing was still going on. Mostly people who would have received a piece of cake like that would have thought, I've got to eat it, particularly if the Queen has just sent it to me.
Whether there is an appetite to eat the cake is unknown, but the appetite to own a slice of royal memorabilia has seen this buyer spend thousands of pounds. Joe Black, BBC News.
What a story. Time now for a look at the weather. Thomas Schaffenacker is here.
Yeah, and it's very quiet on the weather front. There's not an awful lot to report this evening. I'll show you a big map of the high pressure that's over us right now in just a second, but I want you see the headline first for the rest of the week. This is indeed what we've had for over the last few days, so no real change. Bonfire night tonight. That means that the mist and the fog could be more prevalent tomorrow morning where we do have those fireworks. But here's that map. Look at it. Look at the high pressure extending from the UK across Central Europe, the Black Sea, all the way towards the Caspian Sea. We're just on the edge of this area of high pressure. It's almost the atmosphere as if it's stalled over us. The jet stream is way to the north over Iceland, Scandinavia. So everywhere roughly to the south of the jet stream is where we have mild air. So huge area of high pressure with a lot of clouds stuck underneath it, but we're on the periphery of that high, which means that the winds are coming in from the south. So they're sort of going from the south over us into Scandinavia and then the other side of Europe. And here are the winds on Wednesday. So we're just on the edge. Now, these are southerly winds, and look at that mild air spreading right across the continent. Now, when we get southerly winds, quite often to the lee of high ground, so northern parts of Wales, around the borders, northern Scotland, the Moray Firth, these sorts of areas are quite likely to have some decent spells of sunshine, even clear blue sky. So we could even see higher temperatures, 16 or so. Where you're stuck underneath the cloud, it'll be more like 13, 14 degrees, not particularly pleasant. And we'll do that again on Thursday because that high is still with us. And for as long as that high is with us, the mild air is with us. Now, these weather fronts are trying to push in, but you see, as they push into that high with air sinking, these weather fronts get squeezed out. So no surprises that we see this outlook. And it looks as though at least the computer forecasts are pointing to similar weather through the middle of the month. Sophie.
Thomas, thank you very much. And that's it from the BBC News at 6. It is time now on BBC One to join our colleagues for the news where you are. Goodbye.
Hello and good evening to you. Coming up on BBC London. Bus drivers in the capital take to the streets calling on Transport for London for better working conditions.
Fatigue, drivers working odd hours, getting tired, 7, 8, 9 days in a row is a lot.
Meanwhile, news that the upcoming tube strikes have been called off, also tonight. On the trail of his stolen bike, how an East Londoner led police to catch the thief and he got his bike back. Plus, the remarkable story of how a woman was reunited with her father after 30 years, thanks to this programme.
And here at Wimbledon Park, we're getting ready for the explosive fun of fireworks night. But with more cancellations across the capital this year, is it becoming a rarer tradition to remember the 5th of November?
A very warm welcome to the programme. Good to have you with us. First tonight, working 9 or 10 days in a row, no toilets, no heating in the winter, and fatigue. Just some of the reasons why bus drivers in the capital have taken to the streets today, calling on Transport for London to improve their working conditions. Campaigners say safety should be a priority. Here's our transport correspondent, Tom Edwards.
Bus drivers marching this morning calling for better conditions. A bus driver's life sometimes isn't easy, and many say fatigue is one of the problems.
What are you protesting for?
For a start, toilet, fatigue, drivers working odd hours, getting tired, 7, 8, 9 days in a row is a lot.
Working hours too long and the facility is not there.
Really?
Yeah.
How hard is it being a bus driver?
Quite hard, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are many issues that we want to change. Like toilets, it's not easy for us to travel and do our trips and not have the toilet at the other end and have to go back to the other end. And we need decent breaks.
Safety is not TfL's priority and never has been.
Campaigners have been calling for safer buses for years. Since 2014, 80 people have been killed in collisions with buses.
I had to give up, it was just too stressful. And then you go home and you're tired, because it is tired driving. It is tired mentally being aware of what's going on around you. Your passengers are your priority. You have to make sure that they're safe. If you've got to brake and someone's not holding on, they are going to fall over and hurt themselves. Who gets blamed? We do.
The families of those who have died in bus collisions, like Kathleen Finnegan, who died at Victoria bus station, recently also said they thought changes needed to be made.
We want to see how they investigate these incidents, and we want to see if the bus contracts are having an indirect impact on safety. The drivers are under a lot of pressure. I would be concerned about the working hours of drivers.
Campaigners say contracts need to emphasise safety.
It needs to be a turning point, because the new government, bless them, are going to roll out more bus services across the country. Okay, good. More better bus services. The problem is, if they use what they call the London model, it will have the same institutional safety problems as we've got here in London. So you have contracts that reward miles and speed. That leads to bad driver working conditions, which is what today is about, and that leads to bad safety outcomes. Killed, seriously injured, families being torn apart.
TfL says drivers' safety is very important and it takes their welfare seriously. It says it is working on a range of measures to improve working conditions, health and well-being. Drivers, though, want action now.
Well, let's turn to the tube now. And Tom, our transport correspondent, is with me because in the last hour or so, the tube strikes have been called off.
Yeah, the tube strike on Thursday was going to be significant because there was going to be no tube because the train drivers were going to be out on strike. There was also a tube strike planned for the following Tuesday. In the last hour or so, ASLEF have announced that they have received a significantly improved offer. I quote, you remember the RMT did exactly the same last last week, so the strikes are off, suspended. That's good news at the moment for commuters. The union won't discuss what this significantly improved offer is, but there's no new money on the table, I'm told, so I'm assuming there's been some kind of movement around the 4-day week for drivers. So it's suspended at the moment. This offer will be put to the union reps on Thursday, so we'll have to see what happens after that.
OK, so just to clarify, this Thursday and next Tuesday's tube strike is off, but we need to kind of keep an eye on it.
Watch this space.
Great. Thanks very much, Tom. Our transport correspondent, Tom Edwards, there. Thanks very much for being with us this Tuesday evening. Plenty more to come, including the heartwarming story of a woman reunited with her father after 30 years, thanks to this very programme. And
stay tuned, London, because I'm going to be sprinkling a little Christmas razzle-dazzle on you here from Leclerc in beautiful Leicester Square.
there are renewed calls on the government to improve laws around surgical procedures. It's after at least 18 women say they were left injured and disfigured following treatment at a clinic in Battersea. We obtained footage of a beautician at Luxury Medical Aesthetics and Academy performing liposuction and showed it to a plastic surgeon who described it as a disaster waiting to happen. It's not illegal in the UK for a non-medic to perform surgery as long as they're not claiming to be a surgeon and have consent from the client. I should say Matt Graveling's report does contain graphic surgical images right from the start.
She don't have no visible jaw. Yeah?
This was advertised as a fat reduction masterclass in southwest London.
And a corner, and as well, nothing on the middle.
Luxury Medical Aesthetics and Academy near Battersea promised to teach a new method of lipolysis, normally injections where chemicals break up fat cells. What was actually used was a scalpel to make a cut before a long cannula was inserted to suck out fat.
This is definitely not lipolysis, this is liposuction.
Dalvi Hamza is a consultant plastic surgeon and member of the Joint Council for Cosmetic Practitioners.
This poor lady is at a high risk of infection at the very least, if not septicemia, and potentially having major complications after this procedure.
This procedure was carried out by Daria Wisniewska, who, along with her sister Monica, own Luxury Medical Aesthetics. Filming is Sarah Guy, a beautician who paid £1,500 to attend this one-day class.
Immediately, I knew that this place was unsterile, unsanitary and not fit for treatment for anyone. Blood on the chair that had not been wiped down, blood and dirty floor, blood splatter up the walls. We're talking dirty sinks. There was gauze swabs laying around that had still got blood on from the previous person that had been in there, and nothing had been cleaned.
Ashton Collins is director of Save Face, a voluntary register of accredited aesthetic practitioners, and supporting 18 women who have complained of complications and injury after fat reduction treatment at Luxury Medical Aesthetics.
It's important to say, isn't it, that it's not illegal what has been done here.
Yeah, shockingly, it isn't illegal. You know, there is no legal framework to dictate that these treatments should only be carried out by GMC medical plastic surgeons, which, you know, it's outrageous that we would even need a law, but actually we are in a state now where we need that, and that's why we're calling on the government to introduce a piece of legislation that actually prohibits anyone other than GMC registered plastic surgeons from carrying out these incredibly dangerous procedures.
In the UK, we have a ridiculous situation where you can actually take a scalpel and cut somebody open and do a procedure as long as you tell them that you're not a surgeon and the other person agrees.
A Department of Health and Social Care spokesperson said,
"We are extremely concerned by reports of highly invasive cosmetic procedures being performed by inadequately trained practitioners. We would urge anyone considering cosmetic surgery to find a reputable, insured and qualified surgeon. We are exploring options around regulation of the cosmetic sector and will provide an update in due course."
The BBC contacted the owners of Luxury Medical Aesthetics, but they did not respond to the allegations. Wandsworth Council is investigating complaints about treatments in the borough, but wouldn't say which places specifically. Matt Graveling, BBC London.
And you can hear the full investigation on tonight's File on 4 on Radio 4. That's at 8 o'clock this evening. It's also available now on BBC Sounds. Next, it may have happened to you or someone you know, because around 20,000 bikes are stolen in London every year with little chance of getting it back. Well, one Londoner who found his stolen bike up for sale online managed to come up with a plan to get it back. Yasmin Rufo picks up the story.
When Alistair's bike was stolen from his flat last week, he thought he would never see it again. But that evening, something on Gumtree caught his eye. A listing that looked suspiciously familiar.
I was in shock, really, in terms of when the bike was listed, given the close proximity from the theft to the actual listing of it on Gumtree. Just knew that I had to act quickly to get it back, or else it would be flipped and kind of disappear.
Alistair reported the ad to the police and concocted a plan to get his bike back.
So I contacted a friend who's based up in Manchester, and we kind of devised a plan where he would message the thief first, asking for the address. I had arranged a time with the thief to meet him at the address given, which was 11 o'clock, and thankfully the police rang me in the morning to inform me that officers would be assisting me at the scene. We managed to recover the bike.
The police warned you not to go to the address to try and retrieve your bike. Why did you decide to do it anyway?
I was very much of the mindset I would go with or without the police. I know that's maybe a little bit stupid, but given the kind of sentimental value the bike has to me, the amount of money and time I've put into it so far, I was very, very determined to get the bike back one way or the other.
He has now been arrested and will appear in court next month. Do you feel that justice has been served?
I feel like justice has been served, given firstly I've got the bike back, but also there's a criminal record already established against him.
Although Alistair was fortunate enough to retrieve his bike, many Londoners aren't so lucky, and one campaign group has been demanding safer and more secure cycle storage units across the capital.
We launched This Is Awkward to talk about the really awkward places people have to keep their bikes at home, you know, cramped corridors in their bedrooms, and how it's kind of not fair, really. There's not enough space and secure places on the street for people to keep their bikes. If there's more and more of these solutions on the street, more and more people are using these secure hangers, it'll become more obvious to thieves that it's a lot more difficult and a stronger deterrent for them to actually steal the bikes in the first place. The responsibility is absolutely on the local authorities, the government, the mayor, to make sure the money is there to deliver the solutions we need.
The Mayor has pledged 40,000 new cycle storage units, and for Alistair, Oliver and many other cyclists, this will be very welcomed news. Yasmin Rufo, BBC London.
Now a roundup of some of the day's other news stories. 123 Metropolitan Police officers have been barred from working in policing over the last year. That's more than twice as many as in 2020 and 2021. Scotland Yard says it continues to make significant progress to relentlessly identify and root out officers who corrupt the force's integrity. The father of 10-year-old Sarah Sharif has denied physically abusing and killing her as he began to give evidence in his defence at the Old Bailey. Her body was discovered at the family home in Woking in August last year. Irfan Sharif and Sarah's stepmother and uncle all deny murder. And Network Rail says plans to redevelop Liverpool Street Station are being redrawn by a new project team. It follows thousands of public objections, including from Westminster Council and Historic England. The original planning application remains under consideration by the City of London. Now to the remarkable story of how a woman came to be reunited with her father after 30 years, thanks in part to this very programme. Mika had been told that her father slept rough in Tottenham, but while she was watching BBC London one evening, she saw the story of a Londoner who goes around helping homeless people in the area and decided to contact him to see if he'd ever come across her dad. She told our reporter Jessica Ure, "It feels like a miracle."
This is the moment that a father and daughter were reunited after 30 years.
I knelt down, I gave him the biggest cuddle. I just sat with him. It felt very surreal, it was very emotional, but it felt very homely and warm all at the same time.
And this is the man that made it happen.
How's your journey been? Yeah, it was good, thank you.
Mika had been wanting to find her father, but had no way of locating him. All that she knew is he had been sleeping rough in Tottenham. And then she saw this.
Tonight, check this out. A 34-year-old from Tottenham helping the homeless across the capital with a little help from a cycling group he started.
My name's Veril Paul Walcott. I'm from Tottenham and I started the Homeless Network.
And on the TV they were showing all the stuff does the homeless out with the bikes and stuff, and I thought, well, it's got to be worth a try. He might ignore me, but I'll give it a go. So I messaged him, and then 20 minutes later he replied back saying, yeah, I've located your dad.
So when Mika had contacted me, I was so taken back by the news that she'd basically found her father through connecting with me, that I actually went down and visited him. I had a discussion with him and I said, I've got something I want to say to you and I'm not sure how you're going to take it. And he's like, okay. I said, well, there's someone called Mika that would like to see you. And he looked up at me from looking at the ground. He looked up at me and his eyes filled up and he goes, how do you know my daughter? Yeah, I want to see her. Tell her I want to see her. And he gave me a little voice message to play back to send back into to his daughter in Wiltshire so she could hear her dad's voice for the first time after 30 years.
Veril kept in touch with Mika and Omar until she was ready to come to London to meet them.
Went over and hugged him, and yeah, it was a really surreal moment, but it didn't feel like a stranger, if you know what I mean. It did feel like home in a very weird way.
Mika now comes to London often to visit her father. He doesn't have a phone, but he's never missing for long because Veril keeps in touch.
For me, it definitely feels like a miracle. If you ask Veril, he'll say, no, I could do this can happen all the time. And I think that's kind of the mentality we've got to have, is actually it doesn't have to be a miracle or one-off thing. We can reunite people.
And after filming, just by chance, we see a familiar face. Jessica Yore, BBC London.
I told you, what an incredible story, and thanks to Veril and his team for the work that they do. And staying with Make a Difference to someone's life, meet the man who set up a charity to provide free football sessions for children across South London. And it's grown from a few sessions a week to almost 20. Kieran Connolly has been telling us why it matters.
Let the ball do the work, too many touches. Start again, start again. My name's Kieran Connolly, I'm the founder of Sports Fun for All. And this is our Downham football session, which is one of 17 of our free weekly football sessions across South East London. So the reason I do this, one of the main reasons would be to offer young people somewhere to go and socialise with their friends for free, build their confidence, learn to win and lose, build their resilience and develop life skills that will hopefully hold them in good stead for the rest of their life.
Hi, my name's Louis and I love this session because it can help me develop my skills and it helps me get new friends and just have fun.
Yeah, just fun, to be honest.
How difficult is it to get funding? I'd say very difficult. Just this month alone in October, I've already submitted 8 to 9 funding applications.
My name's Moshe. I started coming here from when I was 8 years old.
We just play football, the thing that we love the most, and it's just amazing.
Where's your target man? One of the young people that's come through the programme that I met back in 2021 is Elias.
3, 2, 1.
He's quite introverted, quite timid, but he's worked on himself, developed his personality and become a coach and learnt the leadership skills to now lead this project at Downham.
Coming here in 2015 as an immigrant and not being able to speak English, it was very difficult for me to get more confident. I was very shy, didn't have a lot of friends. Go on, Mosh, go on, Mosh. Now I'm studying sports management at the University of Westminster.
Play on, play on. Young people need a safe space to go to, and that's what Sports Fun for All provide.
Kieran Connolly there. Now, remember the 5th of November. Yes, it's bonfire night. And although plenty of people were marking it at displays at the weekend, this was Battersea at the weekend, many are also out this evening, including our reporter Chris Legg, who is at a ticketed event in Wimbledon. Wrapped up warm, thankfully, Chris. Hiya.
Yeah, Riz, we believe this is the biggest surviving display in London to actually take place on the 5th of November. 20,000 people are going to be here tonight. Crystal Palace used to be bigger. That always used to take place on the 5th with 5,000. That hasn't come back after COVID. And there's been a trend in recent years of cancellations. This year, Carshalton, Blackheath are among those, and Victoria Park too, that haven't survived. Councils citing rising costs and the environmental impact. But this is a tradition thousands still want to enjoy. And I've been asking people here tonight what makes it special to them. Before we hear from them, first of all, the Deputy Leader of Merton Council on why they believe it's still important to run their displays.
Its popularity is shown by the fact that it's sold out. It's so popular with both local residents here in Merton, close to Wimbledon Park. We also had the events in Morden Park on Saturday. But also we get visitors from other boroughs as well because it's a lovely family-friendly event.
Does it get harder to justify the decision each year, though, to go ahead, given the pressures on council money?
So we're just so proud of Merton. We want people to feel proud living here. And it's events like this that really do bring our community together. You know, I remember coming to this when I was a kid, and I hope the kids here today are making memories. So we think it's important to carry on putting on these events.
It's not just the fireworks, it's the fireworks, the atmosphere, the rides, the lights, but the music that goes with it amazingly. It creates a whole atmosphere and experience.
What do you love about it?
I love it because, like, every year it's so much fun and there's rides and the fireworks are very nice, and I love coming here because it's so close to my birthday.
I think it's good to get the community together. All the kids love it. They were talking about it all day at school, getting ready to come. A lot of the families are ready to come. I think it's a lovely night. I think it brings everyone together.
Yeah, you can feel what it still means to a lot of people, but you sense it is only going to become more difficult in the coming years for councils to put on these sort of displays for all sorts of reasons. Only today, a petition signed by 1 million people delivered to Downing Street calling for greater restrictions because of the impacts on animals and vulnerable people, although many argue that done the right way, those impacts can be lessened or even eradicated. And certainly everyone here tonight, Riz, is just concentrating on having some good old-fashioned fireworks fun.
Absolutely. I hope they do enjoy it. Thanks very much, Chris. And, of course, happy birthday to someone there who was celebrating tonight. Thank you, Chris. OK, how energetic or flexible are you feeling? I ask because wait until you see this. La Clique is an artistic show, a blend of cabaret, circus, comedy and burlesque, all rolled into one, that has toured the world for 20 years. And to mark that milestone, it's returned to the West End this evening. Alice Bandukravi brings us a special preview.
From the sublime to the breathtaking, La Clique is back in Leicester Square, celebrating the 20th anniversary of wowing and charming grown-up audiences with its intimate cabaret. And make no mistake, these performers are some of the best acrobats and aerialists in the business.
It's got such a variety of amazing acts, and the skill level, the talent is always just super, super high. And it just has this kind of, I mean, the Spiegel tent is just always amazing because it has this kind of inbuilt magic, I think, that when you walk in, you're just in a different world.
Danique describes this as easy.
You're from a family of performers,
Yes, yeah. So my mom, my dad, and my sisters are all performers. Everyone is, the whole family. Yeah.
It's in the blood.
Yes, like showbiz baby. Yeah.
And this is showbiz, baby.
This is showbiz, baby.
It all happens in a Spiegel tent, a travelling cabaret room, which is assembled like flat-pack furniture for the duration of its tenancy before moving to the next city. The small round stage makes it an especially up-close and personal experience.
One of the key things, like a lot of circuses, is that the audience is not only watching the artist, but they're watching the audience watching the artist. So you're looking across the small little stage and you're really part of the environment and you're as close to the show. You can feel the nervousness, you can feel the sweat, you can feel what the audience feel, what the artists feel in the context of a show that's so intimate. Yeah. So intimacy is all about, it's what it's all about.
It's also very Christmassy, set within a Christmas market that opens tomorrow.
It is the most fun you can have at a Christmas market. I love Christmas so much. We're in a big Christmas market. You come to this big wooden tent. This variety show is extraordinary. You can go and have mulled wine or whatever you people drink. I don't know how it works out there. But basically, we're going to be running from we're running from tomorrow until January. And this is Christmas. We are the Christmas show.
Alice Bandukravi, BBC London.
Well, guess who's got to follow that? Only Sarah Thornton, who's got to check on the weather for us.
It is a hard act to follow, isn't it, really? Especially it's so grey and dull at the moment, isn't it? That's the story of this week. A lot of dry weather. It's really pleasant, but it is actually going to be fairly cloudy, I think, as we go through the next few days. And certainly it was today, wasn't it? Temperatures today were about average for the time of year. 10 or 11 degrees is what we'd expect at this point in November for our daytime high. As we go through the week, it's going to be milder than that, but certainly not today. And you can see those leaves are starting to fall away. There isn't much wind around though, which is good news if you're just about to head out for the evening and look at some fireworks. Well, it is going to stay dry and it is fairly mild overnight, but it is because of all of that cloud around as well. Here's the story then on the bigger picture. We've got high pressure out towards the east of the UK. It means we're nice and settled. There are very few lines there. Of course, they denote that we've got very light winds, and that's not mixing the air up very much. So it means we don't have much in the way of those breaks of the cloud. Having said that, there could be one or two appearing here and there, especially out towards the east of the capital as we go through this evening, and that would allow for some mist and fog to form by tomorrow morning. I think any way you slice it, we will have a pretty grey start tomorrow. Temperatures though pretty mild for the time of year to start a November morning, 9 or 10 degrees, and then through the day tomorrow still sticking with that blanket of cloud, the odd break here and there. It is a dry day though, and actually the temperatures are starting to lift up a little bit. So as I say, today we're 10 or 11 degrees quite typically. Tomorrow 13 or 14 Celsius. We're starting to bring in some much milder air, and that process is going to continue over the next few days as well. As we go through tomorrow night, overnight into Thursday, very similar. Could be a bit of mist and fog first thing on Thursday morning, and then the day itself is going to be dry and mild. The wind just picking up just a little bit here and there out towards the south and east. That could, as you can see, break up the cloud just a little bit more, but it is a dry day. Temperatures at 15 degrees. Again, that's 4 or so degrees above average for the time of year. Here's the air mass chart. We look at it quite a bit, don't we? Not so much at this time of year, but we are, because we keep the oranges right the way through until the weekend. And again, that suggests to us that we do have some very mild and some settled air with us over the next few days. So look at these temperatures. A lot of mist, a lot of cloud on this, but it is a dry outlook right the way throughout. Yes, it will be difficult in the mornings, especially tomorrow morning where we've had those breaks tonight. There could be some fog, which is very slow to clear. Eventually lifts up into low cloud. Signs of brightness as we go through the second half of the weekend into the start of next week. As we go through next week, it's still dry, it's still settled. Looks like we are going to see more in the way of sunshine, but with that, it will be a little bit cooler as well.
I love the fact you said signs of brightness. Sarah, thanks ever so much. And that is where I leave you this Tuesday evening. Thanks very much for watching. A reminder, if you missed it, that the planned tube strikes for this Thursday and next Tuesday have been suspended. Lots more, of course, online, including the warning to shoppers looking for a good deal on a luxury advent calendar to watch out for online scams. That's on the BBC News website and the BBC News app. From me and everyone on the team, do have a lovely evening and enjoy the fireworks if you're going to a display. And of course, keep an eye on the pets. For now, bye-bye.
Parents, watch new Hey Dougie now. A is for apocalyptic mess with the tidy up badge. They'll make less.
B is for a bedtime song. I want to put EastEnders on.
C is for cartoons without ads. And a pair of really fabulous crabs.
Parenting's like ABC with iPlayer and Hey Dougie. Watch new episodes only on BBC iPlayer.
As the nation waits, the next chapter is being written, and the outcome could change everything. With expert analysis and updates, we'll break it all down as America decides on one of the most important nights in global politics.
So you must get out and vote. You have to go and vote.
But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a tight race until the very end.
There is only one place to be as history unfolds.
US election results night, tonight at 10:40 on BBC One and iPlayer.
Also tonight, finding hope after a life-changing diagnosis. Olympian Sir Chris Hoy shares his story in an exclusive interview at 8.